Hello, this is Lady B, and this week I bring unto you the apple. After all, what fruit is more synonymous with fall than the apple? Whether it's baked goods, scented candles, dipped in caramel and have a stick put in it, or used in party games, apples are everywhere this time of year, and they're so delicious. So I thought it could be fun to try a few recipes out. I'm going to make a tea blend, an apple tea blend. I'm going to share with you my mother's baked apple recipe, and we'll try out an apple facial recipe from the Calendar Book of Natural Beauty. We'll see how it works out. First, my tea blend. Those of you who know me know that I love nothing more than a cup of herbal tea at the end of the day. And one of my favorite herbal teas in the fall is the apple cider teas, the ones that taste like the non-alcoholic apple ciders. And I also love hibiscus. So I thought I would make my own tea blend that is a combination of apples and hibiscus. So I've come up with my own recipe and I'll be trying it today. Now I have been working on this for a little bit because some of the ingredients I couldn't just go out and buy. For example, I was able to get dried apples at a health food store, but they weren't dried enough. They were still very soft. So I had to cut them up and set them out to dry longer. Also, I wanted some orange zest to go in it. So I zested my own orange and dried it. That took a couple days. I also got just a little overly enthusiastic. And I wanted some ginger candy for this. And I made my own. Now you don't have to make your own. You can buy ginger candy or crystallized ginger in the stores, especially the health food stores. But I just had this desire to give it a try for myself. I've never done it myself, and I had to try. So I used Alton Brown's recipe. If you want to try it yourself, I love this. It is so good. Made a lot more ginger than I needed because it makes an entire pound of it. But it is so good. So that's something you can do. So I've been working on this ahead of time. This is not my day one. But I have my recipe. I figured out my proportions. So I have here 3/4 a cup of dried apples. And this is basically one apple, just to make it easy for if you want to do this at home for yourself. And this is the zest off of one orange, which is, I measured it and it came to about 1/3, I believe. Yeah, 1/3 cup. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. And then I'm not using all of this. I'm going to use 1/4 cup. And these are the smaller pieces. I have much bigger pieces in my crystallized ginger, so you could always just cut it up if you wanted. But there's 1/4 cup. And want to keep, when you're storing these, if you're doing it like I did and you have to store it for a day or two, you need to put a paper towel in with it, because if there's any moisture and you seal it and there's nothing to absorb the moisture, then you're going to get mold, and we don't want mold. So my hibiscus, I love this stuff. It's one of my favorites. And I'm going to put 1/2 cup of hibiscus in. That's not measuring very well. We're going to pretend this is 1/2 cup. And then the last thing I want to add is some cinnamon. Now I have to use stick cinnamon because I need it to be large enough pieces that it won't go through my mesh. Cinnamon is a very strong flavor, so I just want to use the one small stick, and I'm just going to break it up if I can. Oh, maybe I can't. So kitchen shears will break these up. Just make sure and hold it in my hands so they don't go everywhere. I don't want to be picking it off the floor and out of the walls. That could be annoying. Now, if I want to make this more even, I could always throw this in a food processor and make them all about the same size. But I don't care. I should probably care, but I don't care. So I'm going to put my lid on and shake it up. I know, so scientific, isn't it? Here we go. And there's my tea blend. I'm going to put a piece of paper towel that I have folded up into the top to absorb any moisture, because we're still dealing with things that may have moisture in them, whether it's the ginger candy or the apples, and I don't want any mold in here. So I need something to absorb that. Now with this kind of loose tea, you want something like this. What this is, it's a teapot with an insert, and you put your loose tea, you put your loose tea in this insert, slip it in there, pour your hot water over it, put your lid on to steep. And the hot water, the insert holds your ingredients down in the hot water so it can steep in this hot water. And then when it's time to pour, they stay in the insert and only your tea pours out. So I'll be using that in a few minutes. First, it's time to start working on my mother's baked apples recipe. Now, if you have never made baked apples before, they are really simple. The first thing you do is you wash the outside of the apple, because not all of this skin is coming off. And then you need to core the apple, leaving a 1/2 inch at the bottom. Now I have here, this is a peeler that has this wedge shape that I'm going to use for it. And I'm just going to go around the center as it spits juice all over me. And then once I've managed to get all the way around, I can turn it, and then the core comes out. And once I have this out, make sure you have all the seeds. You can come back in and look in there, and if there's any seeds or anything hard that you don't want to eat, just dig it out. And you're going to leave a cavity inside. All those things that you leave behind when you're eating the apple, take out. Just the very middle, making sure not to touch the bottom. So now I have this. Now, one of the things that commonly happens with baked apples is that you'll bake them in the oven and the skin will split. And there's 2 ways to prevent that. One is to peel 1-inch strip all the way around, so you have the top and then the bottom. The other is to just peel the top half off, so you're left with kind of a skin cup. I'm going to do the second. There we go. Half peeled. And then it goes in my pan. And I'm going to do this for 5 more apples because I'm baking 6. Here's my 6 apples. Now, they're really not good at holding their shape, and I have extra space here in the pan. So I'm probably going to put something here to keep them from slumping. But there they are. So the next step is to fill them. Now, most baked apple recipes are brown sugar, butter, and cinnamon. And the idea is that the brown sugar and the butter in the apple as it's baking creates a sort of a caramel. But that's not how my mom made hers. My mother makes hers, or made hers, with honey. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze some honey into the bottom of each of these apples. That looks good. Now I'm going to put a teaspoon of brown sugar, or in this case, coconut sugar, in each one. And that will just add a little more flavor. Yes, this is very much a dessert. There we go. And then lastly, I'm just going to sprinkle cinnamon over the top. Now, if I want to make sure that I get cinnamon down in it, then I will want to use only 1/8 of a teaspoon to do so. And if you want that cinnamon flavor, then you want that 1/8 teaspoon. But that's all it takes, is just 1/8 of a teaspoon. And then I'm going to sprinkle it over the whole thing just to put some on the outside of the apples. Now, the last thing I do before putting this in the oven is I'm going to put water in the bottom of this, about 1/4 inch deep. It's going to take 1, maybe 2 cups. And then I'm going to put it in the oven at 375. And it takes a while. We're talking 45 minutes to an hour. You'll know it's finished when you take a fork and you poke one of the apples and it goes in, just slides in easy. Just fork tender, cooked through. But like I said, that will be 45 minutes to an hour from now. So I'm going to go put the water in this, put it in the oven, and we'll see how it goes. Now, I almost forgot. You can put butter or margarine also, a little, just a dab, just 1/8 of a teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon, at most a teaspoon in them also, if you want to get that caramel-like flavor. Now, in my family, we don't. The reason for that is, well, you're just going to have to wait and find out later. And they're finished. And you can see how they turned out. Now, your cooking time is going to depend on the size of your apple. These took a full hour because they were larger apples. If your apples are smaller, it might only take a half hour, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. You just check them with a fork on the inside. You don't poke on the outside. The outside gets tough because of the heat. But the inside is where the stuff in the honey and the sugar and all that stays moist. And so you can poke it on the inside with a fork. And when it goes in easy, it's done. So there we are. Now, this is how my family eats them. Take a bowl and you put your apple in the bowl. And then, rather than putting butter in them, we pour in some milk. This is coconut milk because I can't have regular milk. But you pour a little milk into the inside while it's still nice and warm. And just fill that up. And then you eat it with the milk. It's like, almost like a little mini apple pie, except you eat it with a spoon. So, after I finish eating this, and it's all mine, then we'll give a try for this apple facial and see how that works out. Maybe I'll have some tea while I'm waiting for it to work too. It's the next day, and it's time to try out the apple facial. Now, this is from the Calendar Book of Natural Beauty. If you've watched my videos, you're probably familiar with it already. It's from the month of October, And the first thing it requires is actually a beauty cream base. It uses this base in several recipes throughout the book, so I haven't done it before because I have been a little intimidated. I don't know why, but I was. So I finally bit the bullet. Now, the beauty cream base is actually rather simple to make. I don't know why I found it so intimidating. It's basically the same as making a mayonnaise. Now, I only did a half batch, but it's really simple. You take 2 egg yolks, I took 1, and you add to it 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar and a 1/4 cup of, it calls for safflower oil, but I was unable to find a cosmetic grade safflower oil. That's the other thing that had been holding me up. So I did a little research and I found that the grapeseed oil had the same properties as the safflower oil, specifically in having similar, let's see, they're called fatty acids, the oleic specifically, and several other fatty acids. It's supposed to be really good for dry skin, and it won't clog your pores. It's used often in this sort of thing. So you put a 1/4 cup of the oil in, and then it's said to do it in a blender, but since I was doing it in a half batch and I wasn't sure my blender would be able to blend that small of an amount, I did it by hand with a wire whisk. You can do that if you don't have a blender. But you basically blend that until it starts thickening, and then you slowly drizzle in an additional 1/2 cup of the grapeseed oil. And when you're done, it doesn't end up like a mayonnaise. It's not thick like a mayonnaise. Not as thick anyway, but it is thick. It's an emulsion. And if you do it in the blender, you might get a lot thicker than I did. Very possible. But you just keep this in your fridge and pull it out and use it regularly. And you can use this by itself for a facial, or you can do this by adding this to it. So I have here a Ninja. And in this, you add 2 tablespoons of this beauty cream base, which I have labeled and put the date on so that I know how recently I've made it when I go to use it again. So I have 2 tablespoons of this base. But the first thing I'm going to put in is these apples. I have a 1/2 of an apple here. See if you can, there we go. And on that apple is a teaspoon of lemon juice. So the apple's been peeled and cored and diced up, and then had a teaspoon of lemon juice poured over it and tossed on it. And that goes in here first. Okay. Then to that, we add the 2 tablespoons of the beauty cream base and 2 tablespoons of honey. Out of the way. Put that down. And then we just blend this. That's good enough. So it's completely blended together. And it's probably meant to be a little thicker than this. If I had made the base in a blender, it probably would be thicker. But it should still work just fine. So now I'm just going to dip my fingers in it and I'm going to massage it into my face. And it says to massage well. There we go. There's plenty left. And now I need to wait 20 minutes for this to soak in. And then I'll rinse it off with warm water. and I'll see you then. And it's been 20 minutes and I have rinsed off my face. And when am I going to learn to not be skeptical about the recipes in this book? Because I thought, oh, it would be fun to try for once and just see how it worked out. But my skin is so soft. I'm going to keep using this for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple days. I don't know, but I'm going to use this again in the next few weeks, at least once, if not several times, until I've used it all up. It feels so good. So that is a success. If you're looking, if your skin has gotten really dry from the cold winter, give this a try. Just the beauty base with apple and honey and a little lemon juice. And it feels so good. And it smelled good too. While I was sitting there waiting for the 20 minutes to pass, all I could smell was this wonderful smell of sweet apples. So that's a bonus too. But the other thing I did while I was waiting was I steeped some of my tea. This is that tea I made yesterday, my own blend. I put less than a quarter cup in here and I've steeped it extra long. Oh, look at that beautiful pink color. I don't know if you can see it. Let me put it where it's not in front of me so you can see the color as it comes out. This beautiful pink color. And this makes about 2 cups. Let's see how it tastes. I think next time I'll lower the amount of hibiscus by half because the hibiscus is the strongest flavor in this, but it is good and I can taste the apple. So that's it. 3 ways to use apples. The fruit that symbolizes fall and especially the month of October. I love all of you, whether new or old. And if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Until then, whether making your own tea blend, experimenting with home cosmetics, or making a baked apple dish, all your own, don't be afraid to suit yourself and make whatever it is you try exclusively yours. And this week, I bring unto you the apple. What the evil queen used to kill Snow White. Poison, it's poisoned. Okay, let's be serious.